go through that process. Let's bring in our panel. We'll start there. Washington Post columnist and American Enterprise Institute senior fellow Mark Thiessen. Fox News chief legal correspondent, anchor of Fox News Sunday, Shannon Bream, and Harold Ford Jr., former Tennessee congressman, co-host of The Five. Shannon, let's start with you. A bit of a surprise, and you heard the vice president's explanation of it. What do you make of it?
Well, both he and the president have been very, very complimentary of Mike Waltz, and he has a great reputation here in Washington as a veteran, as somebody who takes these things very seriously. But it was a bit of a boomerang today. I mean, bubbling this morning that maybe he was leaving the NSA position, now going to be set up to potentially become the UN ambassador. The man who has now assumed the NSA position concurrently with Secretary of State duties, Marco Rubio, he was approved by the Senate 99-0. I think all of us on this panel tonight could agree on one thing. That is not going to be the vote for Mike Waltz after what he walked through with Signalgate, which the vice president told you was a nothing burger. But the ranking member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner, said today he thinks it's going to be a, quote, brutal hearing given what's happened.
Yeah, and here is some other Democratic reaction to this news. Take a listen.
What do you think that his confirmation hearing would be like? I mean, considering what we know about Signalgate.
I think it would be pretty brutal. And let's see what happens. I never say what I'm going to do on a vote until we have the hearings. But I'm not excited about what the behavior was on Signalgate.
It's a sad moment, I think, for Mike Waltz than rather resign on principle. He's actually taken a booby prize in being the UN ambassador.
Mark, what do you make of all that?
I love the Democrats calling the UN a booby prize. That's quite interesting. Look, Mike Waltz is a great national security advisor. He's going to be a great UN ambassador. I just worry about what this says about the Trump foreign policy team going forward, because one of the things that made him so successful in his first term, and he had an incredibly successful first-term foreign policy, is that he had a team of rivals. He was not afraid to have people inside his inner circle who might have disagreed with him or disagreed with each other. And the result of that was amazing. He killed Qasem Soleimani. He bombed Syria twice for using chemical weapons. He armed Ukraine. He did a whole bunch. He launched a cyber attack on Russia. He didn't retreat from the world. He's not an isolationist. He made our enemies retreat. And I just worry that there's this move towards what Vance just referred to as sort of loyalty. Loyalty to what? The MAGA foreign policy isn't an isolationist foreign policy. Trump is not an isolationist. And so I hope he's going to have a team of rivals to some extent and have differing advice going in, because that's what helped him become so successful in his first term.
Yeah, Harold, you heard the vice president here in South Carolina, the president also publicly saying that the Signal story was a nothing burger and they didn't think it was a big deal in the big picture. Privately, I think there is some angst about how that all went down and the fact that it got so much attention, and it's hard to believe that that doesn't point right back to this.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. I think, first of all, congrats also on the interview with him. I think you're right. And I think Mark raises a larger point that I think the White House and Mr. Waltz, who I hear nothing but great things about and have met him on one or two occasions, but he will now be put before the Senate in a hearing that will not only be about him, but will implicate some of the things that Mark just mentioned. The overall approach and the policy approach and the kind of discussions and debates they may have been having in the White House, not only about Ukraine, but about Asia and about our own hemisphere. Mr. Waltz is going to be put on really on a jury stand to defend and lay out in the same conversation what he would do and how the president's going to prosecute some of these things going forward. If Mark Thiessen is right and you've removed a voice that might have been a more leaning forward voice in terms of American involvement around the globe, and you are going to replace him with someone who is going to echo what some consider an isolationist point of view, I think that's not great for the country. But we'll see a lot during this confirmation hearing, Brett. He'll have to answer a lot of questions about Signalgate, but equally important, maybe more so, what is this administration's position on all of these issues, and what do you think we will do going forward? Mike Waltz will have to answer those questions on behalf of the administration.
Yeah, it seems like he's going forward with it, and we'll see how this all progresses and what that looks like, and obviously we'll cover the hearing. Shannon, the other topic, we should point out that the new interim National Security Advisor and Secretary of State will be on with Sean Hannity later today. The other topic, which is also on a later show, Elon Musk and Doge. I asked the Vice President about that and what he thinks about it. Take a listen. cutting spending is a core part.
Sure.
Doge has done things. I interviewed Elon and all his team. What do you think about that as he's exiting the stage?
Well, first of all, he's not really exiting the stage. I mean, he came in saying, I'm going to work on this for 6 months. And he's not going to disappear, by the way. He's still going to play a regular role. He's just not going to be in Washington every single day because he's got a day job. We're not going to know the full scale of Doge savings in 2026 until we get to 2026. But I actually think that what we'll look back and have said is we cut out a ton of waste and fraud in our own government.
Elon and some Doge members are going to be on Jesse's show. This is just one big promo, Shannon. But anyway, what did you make of that answer and where Doge is?
Yeah, I think because there have been these pushback articles and reports, they haven't really saved all this money they said that they were going to or that they claim that they have. I thought, the vice president saying it's going to take some time for these things to play out. And whether they do, listen, if they show up as a positive thing in 2026, that could help them going into the midterms to show that Elon was doing things that were important. But, this comes the same week that we hear this report that Tesla was doing a search for another CEO, which they have completely batted down, saying it wasn't true. Elon's talked about how it's been not fun to be under constant attack and watch Teslas and their dealerships on fire, those kinds of things. So he says he's going to stay at it, but I think him stepping out of the day-to-day role is also partially about his business losses over the last few months.
Yeah, I actually have another part of Vice President Vance's interview that will air tomorrow. We talk about politics. We talk about 2028 and Democrats. Speaking of Democrats, Harold, New York Times, Harris returns to political life, warning of a constitutional crisis. It wasn't until Wednesday night that former Vice President waded back into the conversation with an affirmation of Democratic frustrations. The nation, she warned, was at risk of constitutional crisis if the courts and Congress fail to stand up to the president. It goes on. Here is from her speech last night, talking about elephants, believe it or not.
Who saw that video from a couple of weeks ago? The one of the elephants at the San Diego Zoo during the earthquake? They got in a circle and stood next to each other to protect the most vulnerable. Think about it. What a powerful metaphor. In the face of crisis, the lesson is don't scatter.
So, Harold, are you circling the elephants?
So I think it's important for voices to be heard, but I think Democrats continue to suggest with some of the things that we're doing that we still haven't figured out the right lessons and the right approach. Now, you would think on a day like today, and even in your interview with Vice President Vance, and just in the last several days, with the trade war that the president has launched us into, with the noble intention of trying to reshore manufacturing jobs and reduce our reliance on China, the challenge is that it's had some other effects, if not material effects. It's raised prices, it's lost wealth, and it's fraying our relationships around the globe, which has national security implications. If I were Democrats, I'd stay on that plane as opposed to talking about the zoo.
Yeah. Mark, what about that? Democrats are trying to find their voice. They have a lot of targets, obviously, as far as policy, but still trying to find the voice.
Yeah, that's not the voice. I can tell you that. I think, Americans looked at that speech and that there but for the grace of God goes the president of the United States. I think the Democrats, if they want to come back out of the wilderness, they got to be more the party of Harold Ford and less the party of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and AOC and all the rest of them. And as for challenging Trump, in the entire 20th century, there were only 27 universal injunctions. There have been now 80 against Trump in his first term and as of now. So I think the courts are doing a pretty good job of challenging President Trump, and I think the Supreme Court is going to have to slap him down at some point because this is the new lawfare.
Yeah,
they failed to destroy Donald Trump, and so now they're trying to stop his agenda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and May 15th, they're going to have that argument that's about birthright citizenship, but it's really about those injunctions and whether 600 to 700 district court judges have the power to shut down with one decision something across the country. So the Supreme Court's going to weigh on that question very soon.
Okay, panel, thanks so much.
The Senate confirmed the last member of President Donald Trump's cabinet on Friday after months of delay from Senate Democrats. Lawmakers confirmed Mike Waltz to be Trump's ambassador to the United Nations on a bipartisan 47 to 45 vote. Senator John Fetterman, D. Pennsylvania, Jeanne Shaheen, D. New Hampshire, and Mark Kelly, D. Arizona, crossed the aisle to confirm him. Senator Rand Paul, R. Kentucky, was the lone Republican to vote against his confirmation. He also voted against Waltz's advancing out of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Waltz's confirmation ends a nearly 9-month gap during which the U.S. was without a representative at the UN, and it comes as the organization gears up for its General Assembly in New York City next week. Waltz, a retired Army National Guard colonel and former Green Beret, previously served as a House Republican from Florida before being tapped to serve as Trump's national security advisor. However, he was dismissed from his position at the National Security Council following the Signalgate controversy after Waltz added a journalist to a group chat with Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Vice President J.D. Vance, and others as they discussed strikes in Yemen. Waltz took responsibility for the blunder and told Fox News' Laura Ingraham at the time, "It's embarrassing. We're going to get to the bottom of it." Despite the hiccup, Trump tapped Waltz in May to be the U.S. ambassador to the UN. The move came after he subbed out Representative Elise Stefanik, RNY, from the position. At the time, Trump cited concerns that losing her from the House would make it difficult to pass legislation, particularly his Big Beautiful Bill, given the GOP's razor-thin majority in the lower chamber. Still, Waltz was scrutinized by Senate Democrats during his confirmation hearing in July, where lawmakers accused the former House Republican of an amateurish move for including a journalist into a sensitive conversation. Waltz pushed back that there was no classified information shared in the chat. During the hearing, Waltz advocated for reforms at the UN and argued that we should have one place in the world where everyone can talk, where China, Russia, Europe, the developing world, can come together and resolve conflicts, he said. But after 80 years, it's drifted from its core mission of peacemaking.